We are back.
And better than ever.
Well, so we're doing these Getting Magnetic podcast episodes when we feel inspired, not on a particular cadence, but this today's episode we are super excited about and fired up for because this is something that's added so much value to our life and we're in this transformation and process and we wanted to share our story with you guys hoping that you guys or anyone listening could relate to this and be inspired. And we're going to bring on a guest, but before we intro our guest, kind of we'll do the intro background preface of why we're doing this episode.
Yeah, so for maybe you're new here, we have had this podcast since 2020. We used to release 2 episodes per week. We were so on it with our cadence. And I think it was last October. Was it October of 2023, I want to say? Um, we kind of had to reel it in and be like, okay, we have way too many commitments. And we decided to put Getting Magnetic on like a hiatus and really only release things when they were very much on both of our heart of like, this is something that feels super aligned, super exciting to share about. And so, little update as of the time of this recording, it is March of 2025.
Yeah.
We are pregnant with our third. So I'm 35 weeks pregnant. We're about to have a third baby.
Woo, baby boy, baby
and
crew.
and what we're so excited to share about, you guys, we're always super transparent about everything in our life. I feel like Wade and I have so many good things going for us. Like we have incredible communication, incredible trust, incredible love story, incredible careers, incredible, like we're grateful for our health. Like so much stuff is really, really, really,
Babies, our children, our
yes.
health, our home, where we live, everything.
We like everything is like pretty much amazing. And the one thing that we've like really, I don't like empowering
Haven't
the
been
word.
in alignment
Yeah, I
on.
don't like empowering the word struggled, but the one thing that we really like have not seen eye to eye on and that has caused like um constant riff and like Sandy eye rolling and like slamming doors and walking away and us not seeing eye to eye and
Stressed.
yes, is like our finances and our money mindset. And so we're going to kind of dive into that today. And this all started like, well, we had been talking, we were doing those like Critides Connections meetings. Like we weren't sticking with them though. Like we meant to do them every Sunday, but they'd be like maybe once a month, and part of it was touching on finances, but a lot of times we get in fights and blah blah blah. And so, about 7, 8 months ago, Wade took it upon himself, and he's about to read this to you guys. He put this post on LinkedIn because, as coaches, like obviously we are health coaches, we are business coaches, we help people in a lot of ways, but good coaches need good coaches. And so we were like, you know what? We need to hire someone outside of us that can help us in this area because we honestly like are not seeing eye to eye and we need a third party. So Wade put this post on LinkedIn, and after he reads this, we're going to intro you the amazing gem of a human that's been helping us over the past 6, 7 months. But why don't you kick it off, babe, and share what were we seeking?
Yeah, so the great context, what was going through my mind right before I posted this on LinkedIn was Sandy and I both have our strengths financially and we have weaknesses or opportunities of growth. And what happened was we were so far apart and misaligned and like not connected on our finances. And it led to us not being intentional with our finances. So while we were making a pretty good living, lifestyle crept up. We weren't aligned, we weren't seeing eye to eye on it, so it made us avoid it as a whole. And with that, you don't find success, right? When you're not intentional with something, when you, especially as a couple, when you aren't aligned on something. Imagine parenting and not being aligned on like how you parent and raise your kids. Like that'd be really tough. We got to kind of treat our finances that way too. So it was kind of like a fed up, enough is enough moment, not with Sandy, just with our
situation.
Yeah, situation and our misalignment in our finances. So I had been posting on LinkedIn, mostly like I'm teaching and adding value, which gets some hits, right? This is the most engaged post I've ever had, maybe probably on LinkedIn, because it was the most vulnerable and it was asking for help. Pro tip there.
Well, and if you guys don't know, Wade got his undergrad and master's in finance. He worked on Wall Street. He was a VP for a finance firm. Like people really look to Wade a lot for like finance advice. We also have a real estate investment company. People always come to us. I have 100 grand. Can you help me invest it? Wade helps people get started with real estate. Like we have all these ways that we help people a lot actually with their finances and their mindset. But then we still had this area that was like, wait, but we have this huge gap. And
I felt really good about financial literacy, but it didn't translate into our personal, handling our personal finances and our alignment on it. So I said, here's the post
of 2024.
September 2024. LinkedIn, I need your help. I'm looking for a, all caps, badass financial killer to add to the financial SWAT team. Our current SWAT teams, like we have a great CPA, we have investment partners, but no one that really manages and handles and helps us build our personal wealth and helps us get aligned financially. By that, I mean, I need someone who will help me budget, help me stick to the budget, help me set financial goals, and help me track towards those goals. And when I say me, I mean we, my wife, Sandy Critides, and I, realizing we need third-party help with this stuff. Hard to have one spouse tell the other spouse what we quote unquote need to do. Husbands slash wives, I know you feel me here. I'm actually very well versed in finance and investing, but historically have despised building my own budget and tracking it. So that's where you come in. Must be a badass and have the confidence to keep us to our goals slash budget, etc. Honestly, I don't need advice per se on where to put our money as we have our own investments set up, but I am open to learning more. We invest in real estate, venture capital deals, and have quote unquote infinite banking policies, aka overfunded whole life insurance policies we use as a bank for our investing. If you or someone you know is the person I need to connect with, will you comment or tag them below? Thanks so much, Wade. And so in doing that, it was kind of being vulnerable and asking for help and feeling well versed in finance and being like, I need help in this area, or we need help as a couple in this area. So what happened was the most engagement ever. If you want engagement, ask for help. If you want a little less engagement, give help, teach, and give advice. But anyways, so many people commented, and there was one pattern. So many people brought up this one person, this one name. They were tagging him in it, at Chris Claflin, at Chris Claflin, at Chris Claflin.
They were
So
even private messaging you, and someone even sent you like 6 voice memos saying how
someone
this guy saved his marriage.
like, yeah, private said, hey, hire whoever. I need you to at least connect with Chris. He changed my life, the course of my life, my wife and I. And I know Chris will give it back like they changed their life. I just helped. But anyway, so we were like, let's also be diligent. Let's interview 3 people. This guy, Chris, obviously we have to. But we, so we connected with 3 people. It was very obvious just energetically that Chris was what we needed, which was very different. Like we didn't necessarily need a financial advisor. Maybe it would end up being that. But we connected with Chris. The rest is history. We're 6 months as of the time of this recording into working together. And Chris isn't a financial advisor per se. He might be able to clear that up. But he's a financial coach that works specifically with couples that come into alignment together to work towards one, building a financial foundation, financial peace, and then towards goals, which has been really cool. And so we were like, oh my gosh, we have to have Chris on. Chris, you're a rock star. Say what's up to the Getting Magnetic community. They're listening here. Thanks for being patient with us with that long intro.
It's a beautiful intro. Such a joy to be here with you. Just such a gift to know you over these last 6, 7 months. It's fun. I haven't thought back to September in some time, and it's just cool to see that, to remember that period and to see where things are now, which I'm sure we're going to dive into and talk about. But yeah, just fantastic to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I guess probably the bulk of this episode, we'll be talking about like our transformation, where we started, where we are now, where we are in our journey, where we're headed, how you're a part of that. But even before that, if someone's like, well, I've heard of financial advisors or someone like manages my money, what is a financial coach? If someone asks what a financial coach is, and even more specifically, what you do, like, how would you answer that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So talking broadly, between a financial advisor and a financial coach, advisorship historically has been sort of for folks who are like, I don't want to have to touch any of this stuff. It overwhelms me. I want to hand over the keys to the kingdom and the passwords to someone and let them manage for me. And there's a great space for that. And for some people, that's exactly what they need. Coaching is more on this side where folks are ready to kind of be awesome themselves, right? They want to take on the ownership, and they might need some partnership to get things up and running. They might need to make some tweaks on how they work together, address some of their blind spots. The fish for you versus teach you how to fish is the simplest way to put it. And so for me specifically as a coach, my swim lane is working with people who are actually ready to take action. They're not in the space where they just want knowledge or more information. I always tell folks like, look, just go do YouTube or books for a season if that's where you are. But when folks are where you were in September, where you say, we're ready to bring someone on and like do this thing, fix this part, of our relationship in our lives. And specifically, a lot of my clients tend to be couples. I do work with folks who are single for sure. But if it's if individuals are married, I actually won't even take them on as clients, just one of them. What I've found all these years of coaching is that finances can be destructive to relationships, right? You guys have heard me talk about this, but it's actually one of the biggest destroyers of relationships in America today. 74% of divorcees list financial tension as the number one or number two cause for the divorce. So when you have a financial nerd who's like a 7 on a scale 1 to 10 of their financial love, and then someone who's like, you know what, I'm turning away from this and I'm a 3. Sometimes the 7 comes to me as a coach and says, "Can I work with you?" And I say, probably maybe, but let's talk about getting both of you on board. And so what we do together is we all level up, right? So that we're all becoming a 7 and then an 8 all together, instead of turning the 7 into a 10. Yes, the couple's score is higher and they'll probably outperform their prior counterparts without coaching, but it's at the expense of unity, right? And so we don't, that's not my jam as a coach. So we're building unity and we're building financial progress.
I love that. We've talked to some people in person about like, yeah, we're working with a financial coach, and they'll ask what that is. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, but this is how I explain it and like my understanding of it. Well, first, a coach is someone that pulls like the greatness or the potential or the skills or the progress out of you, not like a mentor might be like, hey, do this. A coach might have some mentorship moments, but it's more like seeing your potential and pulling it out of you. That's kind of coaching versus advising is like, hey, do this, this, and that, or I'm going to
Beautiful.
do it for you. But anyways, beyond that, what I always say is, so we're working with Chris. He's awesome. He's a financial coach, more specifically or niche into couples. And how I explain it is, and how I remember it is a scale of 1 to 10, but I remember it kind of being like a 5 is like neutrality and like peace around money and your finances and like kind of alignment. And usually kind of what you alluded to, what happens is one, often what times happens is one person in the partnership is like at a 7 or an 8. If a 10 is like extremely uh abundant thinking and like spending, and like almost a 10 is like irrational, almost like very not grounded in the finances, just like spending and kind of wild. And a 1 is like the miser, the penny pincher, like never spends a dime. Like the goal is to like be neutral, like you focus on the future and investing while spending on the things you love. So a 5 is neutrality. And usually what happens is one person is a 7 or an 8, and the other like balances out and averages to a 5.
Mhm.
It's like a 2 or a 3, but look how far apart you are. Like imagine an 8 and a 2. You're like 6 points apart. So it's like coming together and working on the foundation to both moving towards a 5, and maybe you end up at a 6 and a 4 or something like that, where one person is probably always going to be the saver investor and one person is probably going to be more so the spender, but you're bringing it together and you're coming into alignment together. So that's kind of how I always explain it. Would you add anything to that, or Sandy,
That's
would
actually beautiful. I've never used the numbers with that analogy, but
yeah,
it's very similar to something that I think I picture in my brain, like old school seesaw, or people sometimes call them a teeter totter, at the park when we were kids.
yeah,
Mhm.
And like to make that work where there's this axis in the middle and there's this big wood board on top. If you're on there with your partner, for it to balance, if you keep moving farther away, they have to move farther away for it to balance. And I see that dynamic a lot and present in a lot of marriages where one person is feeling most of the stress of the money because they haven't learned to establish a couple's joint CFO model like we do together with my clients. And so the one who's maybe just like more into that stuff naturally has kind of taken on the role, and they're the family CFO and they feel it alone. And that's burdensome. And so that person ends up being, they can even create a parent-child dynamic sometimes where they make the other partner check in on all their spending, they're allowed to spend. And what happens is they become kind of maniacal and Scroogey and really focused on like, wow, it's really tight and I don't think we're going to make it. And their partner feels the stress of that. And naturally, like all humans do, they crave balance. And so they start to say, no, hold on, wait a second. I don't even want to think about the money. I don't even want to look at it. We're going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. And what happens over time, this cycle becomes vicious and they kind of get entrenched in their given positions farther and farther and farther. And I've seen it in cases where it gets really, really extreme. And they kind of, when they look at it, they're like, I don't even know how we got here, honestly. But it's been because they've been craving balance, and they've been sacrificing unity for balance. They've been getting farther away so that the seesaw still balances.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I feel like we should share a little bit about like when we started with him, like
Yeah.
kind of our mindsets and
Yeah.
where we were at,
I agree.
and obviously we made quite a
And
bit of
like where we are
progress.
apart.
Yeah,
And our
but
roles.
also, I mean, we obviously still have a lot more work to do, but yeah,
Let's talk about where we
recap
started.
where we started.
Well, I think it goes back to like what we've talked about somewhat before on our podcast, but like
Our
it really stems
upbringings.
from our childhood, our upbringings, and
Yeah.
we don't need to go into full long story detail, but like overall, like maybe you start and talk about like your financial mindset,
Yeah,
and
I
then
feel
maybe your
like
strengths, what you feel like you're really good at, and then maybe things that like you've realized are opportunities for growth or different stuff like that, and then I can do the same.
yeah, so in a short recap, I feel like I grew up with my dad was the provider. He was super successful and I never once in my life ever worried about money or anything. Like if we not in a way that we were like spoiled, but it was like if we needed something like we would get it. And we vacationed a lot and we had everything that we needed. And I never worried at all about my parents financially. When I would see other people be like, "Oh, we can't afford that or this or that." I didn't understand that. Like I never had seen that in my real life. And so I just always came from the very privileged, abundant mindset that like, oh, like everything's taken care of. And my money mindset has just always been like money flows to me freely and effortlessly. Money's easy to make. Um like it'll find a way to meet all my things will be taken care of. I'll be more than enough taken care of. If I have a need for something, it will show up for me. There's never been like lack or scarcity or fear around money, honestly, until Wade and I kind of got married. Like then it changed. So it's like, okay, now I'm 30 and now I'm like having different thoughts about money. And obviously you had a different experience.
Yeah. So mine was pretty much the opposite of Sandy's, where I had a great childhood. I had loving parents. They did provide, but I definitely felt from a child like stressed financially, energetically through my parents. And like they didn't necessarily talk about, or they weren't like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees or anything like that. Or like we would do things, we'd go out to dinner, like we had even some nice cars, but I always felt an underlying financial stress. And I know, especially now being an adult, that that was a thing in it with my parents and growing up, and I know that was a stressor for them, and I don't know why, but from a young age I felt like I put responsibility on my shoulders. Like we'd go out to eat, I'd make sure I'm getting like something cheap, or like we're going, I'm like, no, telling my little brother who's more abundant thinking, like don't add the guac, or just less like concerned with our family's finances, it's an extra $2, like no, we don't need that, whatever. I always felt like
You
a
were trying to like protect
protector.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to protect my family. So while there's a shadow side where that kind of helped me develop a scarcity mindset around money, there's also the light or the lesson or the growth of it where I then was highly motivated intrinsically, like from within, to be like, I have to protect my family financially. Like I grew up in Boston. How do I do that? All I saw were businessmen. I got to become a businessman. All right, I play football. Let me just try and get really good at that, get good grades, get a scholarship to a business school, and like I'll become a businessman and make money and be able to take care of my family. And actually did that. That came to fruition. I got a scholarship to a business school. I even got my master's degree there in finance. And I'm like, okay, it's go time. When I make six figures, everything will be set. Like everything will be. And so put my head down, climb the corporate ladder. A few years in, did that, and was single too. Like, so like when you're making six figures single, is different than when you're family of four, about to be five. And I was like, oh, I didn't feel any more fulfilled. However, I'd reached that place I set out to go. So I felt secure. I was even able to provide somewhat for my family, and I felt like good about that. But I also realized it wasn't the answer, it wasn't fulfillment. So my whole life, I had to like, then I realized I had to build my own financial literacy. I had a good finance job, but I had my master's in finance, taught me nothing about building my own personal wealth or my own personal finances. So I start to go down this personal development reading. One of the first dominoes was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I started to listen to podcasts and stuff and building personal wealth, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then Sandy and I get married, and I feel really good financial literacy and I want to become an entrepreneur. And she has this abundant, big thinking, big life. And I love it. And it helped me so much because I was the opposite. I'm like, no, I need to save and invest in all the things. And so it actually is a beautiful partnership in marriage, but also we were far apart because I was very like CFO, very financially literate, knew what to do with money. And then, but we start to come together. And so you got to marry your money mindsets and start to realize where's one partner strong, where can one get stronger, where can I pick up the slack for her and vice versa, and where can we become aligned on it. However, we didn't really do that. We just kind of lived our life. We're not intentional about our finances. And over time, we've always actually made solid money. We've always lived in nice places that cost a lot. And as we've grown our marriage, our relationship, our family, your lifestyle grows, it's called lifestyle creep. And we are very not intentional with our finance. We just kind of lived and we're like winging it, no budget. And so what happened is we ended up in this place, even though we make what some might think of as great money, with debt we don't want, with credit card debt, with very high interest, which me as a whatever finance guy, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're paying this level of interest. And it just got to the point where I was fed up. We would be fighting about it. We would, anytime we talk about money, I would come from a stressful place. Sandy would like kind of roll her eyes at me like, oh my gosh, scarcity mindset. You got to think more abundantly. And we were just so disconnected, which led to the LinkedIn post, which led to Chris. So that's where we began in September when we hired Chris. And then I'm thinking like he's going to come in tactical and help us, and he's going to help us devise a budget and this, and then he's going to tell us what to do, third party. And even probably in the back of my mind, he's like, he's probably going to be more like, oh, Wade, you're right. And Sandy, but no, that's not what happened at all. He came in right away and we're like, guys, before you go be millionaires, go have a certain amount of assets, go do anything, we got to build your foundation. I work with clients that make a lot of money and live paycheck to paycheck. So it's really about building the foundation. So that's where we started.
Yeah.
I know that was a long
No,
story.
I love that recap. And it made me think too, just there's so much to that backstory of like security too. Like it made me think like my dad still lives in the same house that I was brought home from the hospital in. So even just like that security
Oh
and
my gosh, I've
safety,
moved like 10 times.
you moved so many times and you guys were in subsidized housing and you lived with your grandparents and like your parents truly did the best that they could. And you have amazing parents, but I totally get why we were in the places that we were. It was like
Yeah.
ingrained, it was ingrained in us,
Yeah.
right? And so
And there's like a nature nurture component. And then Chris comes in, and Chris, I'd love to, or you add anything else, but invite you back in where third party outside
no,
perspective,
for sure, Chris, we need to bounce
what
back
did
to
you
Chris now.
see in us? That's our internal perspective. But like when we started working together, what'd you see? What'd you notice? Be totally real. Like, where'd we begin?
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for teeing that up. And I just want to say one thing to all the listeners first, which just to give the Critides some much due kudos. Those of you who are listening already know they're amazing ballers. That's why you listen. But isn't it a cool example to be vulnerable and open and share their financial journey? Because I know, being a coach, that basically every person listening is relating on a deep, visceral level to what they're sharing. You've heard the analogy of the duck where we're calm with what everyone sees, but we're going crazy under the surface. And they're showing a little bit under their surface in their financial journey. And I know that that's going to be a gateway for a lot of people to say, oh my gosh, it's okay for me to not be perfect there and to want to be better and maybe seek help if that makes sense for my situation. But so where you were when we met, yeah, I saw two incredibly amazing, high performing, high potential rock stars that were thriving, like you said in the intro, in so many areas, and weren't thriving as much as you could be in your finances, in your dynamics together, and a couple of blind spots like everybody has, right? But what I saw most importantly that excited me was people who were sick and tired of how it had been, and we're ready to say, what is it? What does it look like? What's the path forward? Because we're not in learn mode, we are in action mode, right? And we've had some learning, of course, but it's always learning that fuels doing. And I'm sure you guys can attest to that. There's been plenty of invitations and action items, and growth. And so, yeah, that's if I were to summarize, that's what I would say. I would say two people who woke up as adults with different backgrounds and said, hey, we're in this now and we're trying to run a household and run our businesses and, be parents and be married and date. And we also have this whole finance thing we're supposed to figure out in our whole household. And it turns out we don't experience that in a vacuum. We can't just focus all of our time and energy and efforts on that. And it's a little bit of an energy drain in the way we currently have it set up. And so we're not thriving as much as we could be. And we recognize all of that and we want to be better. And so that's how I would summarize.
I love it.
So
And thank you for that. Receive that. And side note too, yeah, like I want to really speak to those people too who you are doing great financially from an income perspective, but maybe you don't feel aligned or you're stressed about it or you're making 400K a year in sales or whatever in your software sales job, but like you aren't keeping any or of that or you're in debt. Like what I've realized is like it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. So that's where like we wanted to bring Chris in to start to build wealth and from there, Chris, we didn't know what to expect per se. Like we started to get a sense, but like talk a little bit about the process or building the foundation, or like you can use us for example, like where we started, but like maybe where we thought we were going to go and you were going to be tactical and in every single little thing with us and building out plans and whatever. And like we are the type where we want calls to action and type A and like, no, do that. Okay, what's the next thing? But like
Mm.
talk a little bit about your approach to the process and the flow of it, even some around like even some of the logistics, like we start out every week and then it kind of transfers, but like talk a little bit about the process.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for that. So what you just shared there is really common in coaching. People have this expectation that it's going to be really ultra tactical from day one. And
Mhm.
don't mistake us listeners. There's some tactics in personal finance for sure. Getting things in the right accounts and all that kind of stuff. But what I've found over all my years of coaching is that there is a foundation that comes before that that's key to winning long term. So we won't highlight every possible thing in the foundation here just for the length of the call. But one thing to highlight as an example that's part of the foundation is I invited the Critides to start getting a little bit more intentional and a little bit more deliberate with their giving, as an example. We won't go into all the details, but they were already generous in a lot of ways. But I invited them to level that up. And this is even while they're still working on crushing some of that credit card debt that Wade talked about, right? And for most of my clients, that comes as a huge surprise at first. But I mean, I won't share it. I'll let them share. But most
smart.
people
Yeah.
report back that right.
Well, to go in on that, I know, remember you told us, and this was a question we were going to ask you, but what do you see in successful people that they do financially? That's one thing you told us. And like everyone I see who's successful financially, and that's not just what's in their bank account, that's the peace in their heart, that's the impact they're making in the world, that's the fulfillment ultimately they have, is giving, like the number one thing. And so that's where Sandy's always been a huge giver. I liked to give, I like to help people, but like for me, like my rational finance brain was like, no, debt over like giving thousands of dollars away a month, or like we won't get into numbers details, we got to crush our debt first. So, but like a part of this process has been me letting go of that. And a part of the Sandy side of it was like, okay, I should be more intentional, a little track a little more giving, because Sandy's liable to like be holiday season and side note, drop 3 grand on blankets for gifts like at 2 a.m. while she has pregnancy insomnia. And I wake up like, oh my God. But kind of back to you, like I love that you brought that up, and that was a big thing for us. And now we love it, and it's a big part of it. And it still a little gives me a little bit of stress. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're giving this much, but okay, I still want to make sure we're making more than we spend and all the things. But it's been beautiful, and you kind of know the how God and the universe and law and reciprocity works. Like what you truly give authentically, like there's a multiple of that coming back to you. It might not be tomorrow, and it might not be even monetary, but like that has been really special. But back to you on the process and the flow. We kind of interrupted there on giving, but I know that was one thing. You're like, successful people give, and we are like, you don't start giving when you're successful. You give first and like set that up, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, we won't make this like the giving episode, but it is so insanely important that I hope everyone who's listening, if even if you're not ready to start coaching in your journey, if you can take one thing from this podcast, if you are suffering in your finances and you're finding yourself in scarcity from time to time, right? these thoughts of like, oh, we don't have enough, things are tight, this is really hard. Find a way to start giving a little bit to a cause that you care about. And if you're married, that a cause that you and your partner both really care about. You will find that regular intentional giving is the surest antidote for scarcity thinking. It shifts people from scarcity to abundance faster than anything else I've ever seen or been exposed to as a coach by a factor of 100. And is it scary? For sure, yes, especially when you have some high interest debt that's sitting on the books. But when a couple gets to a place of true abundance in their thinking about their own financial situation, they are now empowered and equipped to have massive, meaningful transformation in ways that you could never have in any other way. Okay, so we won't go into every example of the foundation, but that's a really good one. What I've found and what the critics are rocking at is when people are really ready to do some of these types of things to get a solid foundation financially and to sort of change the way that they interact with and even think about their money over time, the results in the rest of the stuff, the crushing debt, the investing more than they ever have, the getting to take the trips, those kinds of things, those all start to automatically take care of themselves because when you have this unified force, especially when they're as baller as the Critides, it's inevitable that when they work together in magical ways with a solid foundation in place, it's just a matter of time for all the rest of the goals, so to speak.
So good. I want to talk about financial peace meetings in a second, and I know we're coming up against
Yeah, you have 5 minutes, right?
I just sent a text and I can bump back a little bit if needed.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we want to get all the juice from you,
Yes.
and then you'll hop off, and we'll just probably continue after. So don't even worry about it.
Yeah, one thing I want to touch on. So one of the next things after the giving was setting up a starter emergency fund. And even though we have investment accounts and we do crypto and we have, what now, 37 doors with investment real estate, like on paper, it's
40.
like, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on, but we actually did not have an emergency fund, like at all, because we weren't thinking, we're like, why would money sit in an account? If we have money sitting around, let's invest it in something. And something you said to me, and I have this written in my notes, your emergency fund is not an investment. It's a relationship protector and an asset protector. And that like shifted something for me of being like, wow, we can't think of every dollar has to productively be doing something for our portfolio. Like,
Mm.
no,
It's an investment in your peace of mind,
it's an investment in your peace of mind. And so,
which it goes against my like rational, like, no, let's make it productive. Like, let's go put that like, but it is, again, that's where coaching comes in, where I'm like, wait, would that having that would make Sandy and I feel so much more peaceful in our hearts financially. So that is what you're really working towards in life, not like a certain number in a bank account. Like, oh,
Mm.
it's just like those mic drop mind-blowing moments that are simple, but like simple shifts, but like all of this, like this, we've only been working together 6 months, but like what it will do for the rest of our life is incredible. But you just keep going.
I just thought that was a cool thing to point out. Is like
Yeah.
that's something we would not have done on our own at all, probably ever.
Yeah.
And then, we kind of decided like, okay, ultimately we want to get this to like 6 months where God forbid something happened and like our income was taken away, we would be fine for 6 months. That's going to take a while to build that nest egg with the way that we live and with the credit card debt that we are crushing. But let's start in increments. So it's like, okay, what's 1 month of your housing expenses? Okay, let's put that in there. Okay, like kind of chunking it
Yeah.
down. So
And I think too, like we'll after Chris hops off, we'll kind of get into more like tactical stuff and like the progress we've made. But while we have Chris, Chris, I would love to ask you like outside perspective again, be truthful, be honest. Like what have you seen the progress in us, I guess, in the 6 months we've working together? Like anything you want to add around like the process as it relates to us and working together and how it can relate to other people, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think for like 2 calls ago or something like that, we just had this moment where we were like all together, like, can we feel what's happened here? Like, because you're just in it and it's a sunrise and it was dark and now it's a little brighter and a little brighter. And we kind of had this moment where it's like, is it noon right now? Like you're communicating better than ever. I mean, I won't put words in your mouth, but from what I see, and you have this just magical energy where you're both excited about your finances and you're actually on paper making meaningful progress, like the zeros and ones, and you feel better, you have more peace. So for me, like I just am thrilled for you both. And I'll often say as a coach that your direction matters more than your speed. And there's no doubt that unequivocally you two, the Crittades household is headed in an amazing direction. It also so happens that you have great speed on a lot of things, just the way you're both wired. But if even if that were to slow down and you were to slow down your speed of progress, you're just headed exactly in the right direction. And that's what matters most. And it's so thrilling and it's a joy. I've told you this, but I'll tell your listeners, I tell the Crittades it's fun to get to have front row seats to their transformation. And it has been a gift and a joy.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that from our end, but kind of before we let you go, Chris, first I want to know, like, for couples out there listening, or maybe one of the couples listening, and they'll send this to their spouse, like, what would you say, like words of hope, inspiration, anything to like a couple who's going through it right now, who's struggling financially, who's stressed out about it, who is misaligned with their partner? Like, what words of wisdom would you give them? And then we'll let you go. But first, we want to know where's the best place to connect to. So that'll be the
Yeah, thank you. I would share two things. First is it's not your fault. You grew up in a system that taught you obtuse angles and not compound interest. So you don't need to be beating yourself up anymore saying, I'm the worst. How did I get here? Why do I suck so bad? Right? You are a product of your environment in many ways as it relates to personal finances. And then the second thing is there is hope. No
Mhm.
matter where you are in your journey, and I mean no matter where, there is hope for you. You can make real progress by just changing your focus to the right things in the right way. And again, your direction will matter more than your speed. So you can start today to head in a better direction no matter where you are. Those would be the two things I would say. And then in terms of connecting with me, yeah, I have a LinkedIn page. It's Chris Claflin. There's a link right on there if you wanted to jump on a free consult. I don't ever work with anyone until we've met and talked about their situation. Sometimes it's a great fit, sometimes it's not. So that's a great way. Feel free to DM me on there. If anyone wanted to shoot me an email, it's just christopher.claflin@gmail. So happy to connect with any of the listeners and talk about where they are, where you are on your financial journey, and if partnering together might make sense.
Mm.
So good. Before I let you go, we're going to talk about this more after you leave, but really quick, can you touch on the financial peace meeting? Because
Oh yeah, yeah.
this is something you introduced to us that we now do every week. And we used to resist any
Yeah.
sort of financial meetings. And now it's on our calendar. We do it every Tuesday. We look forward to it. Um, Give me a minute on like, what is a financial peace meeting? Why is it important? Just anything
Boom.
to say there.
Love it. Yes, so good. So most partners don't have a regular established cadence for talking about their money. They have that in areas where they're thriving. They have their regular gym cadence and their regular grocery shopping cadence, etc. But for money, they don't have one. So one of the first things we work on is establishing that. In our household, we call it the financial peace meeting, our own. So I always give that name to clients, and they can choose their own if they want. But if they keep it, that's what it is, right? So it's a setup. I would even call it sacred, if we can use that word, time, dedicated time to talk only about money together. And it kind of lives in this container. And over time, you develop your own groove and your own agenda and your own flow. But this is one of the big secret sauces for long-term success. You can have a few days of getting off the rails and not living the way you want to live and aligning your dollars to your desires. But if you know you always have an accountability check-in with your partner whom you love in a safe space, it keeps you, again, your direction headed in the place that you want it to be headed in. So I found that to be honestly one of the biggest, greatest determining factors of success long term. When I have clients that I check in years after they're done with coaching, the first question I ask them is, how's your financial peace meeting going? And when they say, yeah, we're rocking, I know before even double clicking that they're probably exceeding every goal we've set. And if they say, oh, it's been a bit of a struggle, I also know conversely that unfortunately they're probably making more progress than they would have, but not as much as they could have.
Mhm.
So good. And we'll talk more about what our financial peace meetings look like, but we're just so grateful for you. And I have to say too, I know when Wade brought you to me, like, babe, I did this LinkedIn post and I think we should talk to this guy. I was like, wait, so we're in credit card debt and now we want to hire a coach and
Totally.
spend thousands of dollars working on this, but I realize like, and it's funny because we say this in our business too, but like we say your health is an investment, not an expense, right? Same thing with this. Like this is an investment, and I know in the long run, like we're gonna save and invest, and so much more than what we're, investing and working with you is gonna come back like full circle, and to have that knowledge. So for anyone that's like, well, if I'm in credit card debt or this or that, like how would I justify this? I really want to invite you to reframe and think of it like as an investment in your finances, in your marriage, in your um
And long term.
yeah, just
Like you'll look back like when you got your assets set up, investments, you're feeling good, you're feeling financially
yes.
free or peaceful, and you're like, wow. It's not all because of I hired a coach, but like that was a really big foundational moment. And like, gosh, looking back at the thousands of dollars I spent on that, like I would spend tenfold probably, like in the long term view of that. So thank you, Chris,
Yeah, we
for
appreciate
your
you so
time.
much.
And we already look forward to our next call with you, and
Any
keep on
departing
talking.
thoughts?
Just so good to be here. If you're listening to this and you made it this far, you're awesome. And I'm not surprised you made it this far because Wade and Sandy are truly exceptional human beings. My plug would be if you've been listening in the shadows and you haven't ever DM'd them or tried to meet them or done a FaceTime with them, set that up. You will not regret spending some of your human time with these two amazing humans.
You're so sweet. We adore you. Okay, well, we'll see you on our next call. Thank you for being here with us, Chris.
Okay, see you, friends.
Great day, brother.
Bye. Okay, so we'll just continue on. I'd love to quickly share what do our financial peace meetings look like so
Yeah.
someone can get insight into that. So,
It's funny, my brain already goes to like we should put together a one pager, give it away as a freebie. All like my projector brain's going off. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, let's talk through it. Like
okay,
the
we didn't
general.
say this, but I don't know why. I just love details on people. I'm like, I want people to know he lives in Arkansas and he's married and he has 3 little girls. He just had another
Yeah,
baby.
third. Oh my God.
Girl dad. He has
Yeah.
what, a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 4-month-old?
Yes. And anyone listening, you can feel his energy,
Yeah,
right?
he's
It is
so just
so
warm.
authentic, warm, intentional, peaceful. He's like meant to be doing what he's doing, which is really cool, which is bringing people together, kind of helping them devise a path, giving some guidance. And it's been just like, yeah, he's amazing as a human. He's amazing as a financial coach, but like I think a
I know.
big
I
part of
love
that is he's
virtually
amazing as
meeting
a
him in
human.
person.
I know. We're gonna have to set that up someday. But yeah, I think now we'll segue into like from our perspective, where our shifts have been. First, we'll touch on the financial peace meeting, what that's all about, where shifts have been within us, kind of what even tangibly we've started to do.
Yeah.
And then kind of like what this process has been teaching us, because we're still in the middle of it. We're not like, oh, we're out on the
Oh,
other
no.
end. Like we have enough to build our own custom home, which is one of our goals. And we'll kind of get into some of that stuff. But and not that we have to make this a super long episode, but yeah, peace meetings, we've kind of gotten to the flow. One, we do it every week. It's on our calendar at the same time every week. If something comes up, it is our priority, but we also say, hey, this came up. Would you be okay if I switch it to this time and we put it somewhere else on the calendar? And as long as both are okay, that's okay. But within the flow, when we started, there was still a little resistance. Now we like more look forward to them, but we're kind of going through stuff and we're kind of figuring out our flow in it. And where we've come to is first we check in energetically, like where are you at energetically with our
Yeah.
finances
How do you
and
feel since
together?
last week?
Yeah, since last week.
And it, sometimes it's a word or two, sometimes it's a paragraph, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, and every week's different. But I
Yeah.
feel like as the weeks have gone on, it's like, I'm feeling good. How about you?
Yeah,
Great.
feeling good, and I'm like, this stressed me out a little bit, or and these peace meetings are a chance where you don't necessarily blow up on your spouse for doing something. You almost say like, hey, something stressed me out today. Could we talk about it later tonight, or save it for the next peace meeting? Maybe you can't save it, and you have like a little impromptu, but where it's not in the moment, like reacting and like getting stressed at each other. But kind of having a plan to do it. So we check in energetically, like, and a lot of this process has been more qualitative than quantitative, more energetics than actual tangible, like, all right, we got the budget set up, we got this set up, blah, blah, blah. So, and then from there,
Another thing we do, we have an app called Rocket Money,
yeah,
and that tracks like what's come in every
shout
week.
out Rocket Money
Yeah.
plug. We aren't affiliated or anything, we just
No,
use
it
it.
just works really great. So what's coming in and what's going out. So every Tuesday at 12, when we do our financial peace meetings, we open up Rocket Money and we go to the week prior where we ended up and we just go through everything. And it will be small things. Okay, you spent $2.79 at blah blah blah. What was that? Oh, that
We
was
just
this.
go through, yeah.
Oh, you went through this. We literally go through
When it's
each
only
one.
1 week, it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
When it's trying to look back a month, 3 months, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we go through week by week and not in a way of like you
Not
spent money at
judgmental.
Target. No, it's not like that. It's like, oh,
It's
often
acknowledgement,
we categorize it
intentionality.
like, okay, this was towards giving, this was towards shopping, this was a business expense, blah blah blah, and it just helps us get really organized.
And what you track grows. We're now intentional about it. I used to be the quote unquote CFO of our family, and I would know everything, but I would like keep it to me. And Sandy kind of
I
just didn't really care
did
about
not
it.
even know the passwords or how to log into any of our bank accounts.
Yeah.
Now, not because Chris told me to or Wade makes me feel. Now it's kind of like a daily ritual. I pretty much log into our Chase accounts, our business accounts, our personal accounts, and I look at the balances every day, which is awesome because there'll be surprises in there too. Like, oh, we got paid by this company or from this deal or the like. It's cool. I didn't know before what was coming in, what
Mhm.
was going out, and now I'm like very aware of what we're receiving, of what's being output.
Yeah.
Like it's
And
good to be aware.
to pause there, like to compliment you, I think that's been one of your biggest strides. Is Sandy's always had like big, abundant thinking, which is very key to building an abundant life and building things like financial freedom and investing and building homes and stuff like that. But then the other part of it is the intentionality, is the grounding in like the reality, but more so like what's coming in, what's going out. Like, and we've always said what you track grows. So now we're starting to track it. And I too, like I would be our CFO, but like I would avoid it too. I didn't want to look at this stuff. I didn't want to do this stuff. I want someone else to do it. But now we're both in it. And so week to week, we go through like the last week's transactions, what came in, what went out, what came in, we give a percent. So we chose, Chris recommended pick something between, for example, 2 and 10% of your income that you want to give. We happen to choose 5 for now. That could slide up, could slide down, but probably not down. But right now it's 5, and that felt for me like a lot. I'm like, whoa. For Sandy, probably felt like, oh, this is great. Look at, I got this giving kind of fund to play with every month. But also Sandy's being more intentional. Like, oh yeah, that was giving. But we kind of check in what came in, what went out. Okay, what do we have to give? Like, where are we at with our giving fund for the month? And then we look at
And
what's
I want to say
ahead.
something
Yeah.
about that. The way we do it, because this just feels very aligned for us. When we, for us, it feels like, of course, it's great if you have like a specific cause or
Yeah.
something. Or some people might tithe to their church, things like that. For us, we want to give to people that we know, or instances or things that come upon our hearts that like really feel like, wow, we did not hear about the story by accident, or we like this didn't come across us for no reason. Like we're meant to contribute to this. So every month it's been different, but it's usually someone that we know, or a friend of a friend, or acquaintance, or someone's going through something in their health or their family, or um there was recently a gal, it was like a sister-in-law of a friend of mine that had like a horrible accident, and she had to get major surgery, and she's gonna have to like relearn how to like talk and eat. Like she had this major jaw surgery. And so anyway, we ordered a ton of tools and things to help support her through that journey, as she's going to be on like a road to recovery for 3 months. That felt very aligned for us. Like, let's help this mom of little kids that had this really tragic accident happen, and we don't know her personally. She's a friend of a friend, right? But like that was like a piece of our giving fund that month, right? But then it'll be different things, right? Treating someone that we love like out to a nice dinner where they're totally not expecting it. Stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, where they're like, "Wait, what? I thought we were just going out to dinner." It's like, "Yeah, we are, but it's on us," right?
Mm-hmm.
So it that's what it kind of looks like.
Flying our nieces and nephew out here
Yes, we
for
just
the 4th of July, different stuff like that, where it doesn't have to be like, it can be like a cause, a foundation, clean water in Africa, something like that. Cancer, we do that stuff too, where like when our friends are running the marathon or someone raising money, like ours is more like, where do we
fluid.
want to put it? And it's fluid, yeah. Or it could be like every month I give to this charity this percent of my income, which has been cool. But back to the peace meeting, yeah. So we go through where are we at in our giving, then we go through what bills or expenses are coming up in the next week, and then we check in on, a part of it, Chris said, and this has helped us, which is ruminate or think about, brainstorm for like a few minutes, up to 5 minutes on like additional income streams you guys could bring in, leveraging things you already have. Not necessarily, it could be going out and getting a bartending job or something in your community where you can go get paid for your time, but it was more so, what assets do you have? Like, what could you leverage to create additional income streams? Even stuff, assets you have at your home that you don't really use, different things like that. And so in being more intentional and thinking about that, some of that has come up where I've started to do more, we both have, but like content, brand deals, things like that, which has been really nice
I feel like once
extra.
we opened it up,
Yeah,
like we're not,
it's
you
come
know,
in.
we're very authentic. We're not going to share things that aren't authentic to
Yeah.
us. But once we were like, okay, well, we already make great money in like our main way that we make money.
And that's our focus, to continue to build
Yeah.
an impact there and grow that.
Yes. But it's smart to have multiple streams of income, right? And so, yeah, like even just in energetically being like, we're open to receiving other ways. I think last month alone, like just on Wade's you know, affiliateness. We made an extra 5 grand last month just on like side deals of people being like, hey, we think you'd really like this. And he's like, wait, I literally would buy that type of product anyway. So he shares it, he promotes it, and boom, a check comes in, right? So it's like we wouldn't have probably like thought of like inviting these extra forms in. But when you have to brainstorm on it every week on your financial peace meeting, just newness opens up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been cool. So we kind of brainstorm on that. And then we kind of either set an action item list, because Sandy and I are action item people, of like, what do we either want to start attacking now? Oh, we need to call the bank. Oh, we need to do this. We need to set up our will, whatever, different stuff. Or we like keep it in a note. We have a financial peace meeting note that we take notes on for like, who's responsible for what. Oh, Sandy's going to pay the water bill, different stuff like that. And we don't actually do much of that in the meeting. Usually we try and keep the meeting like 20-30 minutes. So it's not like, oh my gosh, it's going to be an hour and a half and you kind of don't look forward to it. It's like, no, we're not paying water bills and stuff in the meeting.
No.
We kind of schedule or plan that for after, but it's been great. Maybe we'll put together like just the high level bullets of like our flow, and we can share that out. But moving on from that, I think, to kind of recap this episode, we could talk more about some of the tangible stuff. Like, let's hit on that quick, but then let's talk about kind of the shifts within us and like where we are and then kind of where we're going. But Chris, these aren't things we didn't know, especially like I read books on personal wealth and stuff like that. We actually know these things, but we're now being intentional about it. So
and being held accountable to
and
it.
being held accountable to it. Honestly, yes, with Chris, but more so between ourselves. Like he just kind of put it out there. But like one, we already said it, we're giving. We're giving 5% of our income every month, which feels really good, even though we're not out of high interest credit card debt yet. We're giving first, which is really cool. Two, we've set up the emergency fund, like Sandy said, where we want, start with like 1 month's housing costs and then eventually get to like 3, I think is our goal, months, but to 6 months of like lifestyle expenses and more lean. Let's say all income stopped. Not like, oh, I'm balling, I'm living my lifestyle. What are 3 months of expenses? What is like 3 months of like, you know, not super lean, but like the basics of your life. That's the goal, to get there. But there's some steps. You start to pay down credit card debt before you get to the 3 months. Set up an emergency fund.
Another thing we did, he didn't tell us to do this. We kind of came up with this on our own.
Mm-hmm.
But we have so many credit cards, and
Yeah.
so many of them like have great point systems or reward systems or travel systems, and we love to travel and blah blah blah. And I feel like we kind of got sucked into that, where
Yeah.
it's like, ooh, let's only
All we use was
yeah,
credit cards.
let's only put groceries on this Gold American Express because we get 4 times the points for travel and blah blah blah, and then it creeps up on you, right? And so what we have done is we have stopped for probably 2 months now. We don't use any credit cards.
Switch everything to
We have
debit,
switched everything to debit.
which is nice because that's actually what you have.
Yes.
Credit card is very easy to spend more than what you have because it's credit. Because when you use debit, and like again, financially, my brain's like, oh, but we could be earning points, whatever. Like, no, this is so much better for our peace because we're actually again held accountable to like, this is what we made, this is what we have to operate with. And honestly, we're a family of 4, about to be 5. we have big lifestyle expenses, like fixed expenses every month. And so then it kind of be like, we now have gotten smart through our financial peace meetings. Like, here's all of our recurring fixed expenses. Beyond that, here's our operation variable, groceries, different stuff like that, going out to eat, etc. Here's what we have to spend, honestly, every month, the max, like after our giving, etc. And our goal is to be in what we call the green every month. It would be called the black in accounting, not the red. So be positive, make more than we spend after giving, after all our expenses, after
That's
everything.
one of our biggest goals for 2025 is to every month be in the green. And
Yeah.
so far,
We've done it.
we've done it. Where we have made more than we've spent every month this year, which like might not seem like a big deal to people. And it's crazy. I'm not going to disclose how much money we make. I feel like we probably make more money than like the average American. We do make very good money, but we still were spending more.
And that's a key. Like Chris works with people. He goes, I honestly, I obviously can't name names, millionaires who live paycheck to paycheck because of their lifestyle creep, because of their cars they have payments, all the stuff, their house, their things that they
I know some
have
of the
just gotten
story he's
used
told
to.
us, like, I think he said one of his clients was like literally spending like, wasn't it like 500,000 a year on his country club?
That he didn't use, that he never
He didn't
went to.
use it
Yeah.
one time.
So stuff like that. And where our brains are like, what, millionaires are living paycheck to paycheck? He reminded us, he goes, a lot of people would look at you guys and be like, how the heck are they in debt with what they make? And not that we're millionaires, but like, so it put in perspective. It was like, whoa. And so the lesson there was like, you, as you make more, you don't necessarily just let your expenses, and it's called lifestyle creep up, and you just get the better car, you get the better house, you get you more things, more of that, like, because then you're still living paycheck to paycheck, you're just making more. The goal is to like have these things in place, give even things like pay yourself first, where stuff goes into investment accounts, kids investment funds, college funds, whatever. And then, you start tax accounts, whatever, then you start to spend from there. So we're getting more intentional with that. These are back to the tangible things. So we've started using debit. We even now we're in the process of where we now put an automatic transfer of our income into an account that then funds all our fixed expenses, our rent, our childcare, our car payments, like any loan payments, et cetera, water bills, utilities, et cetera, where then like we know that amount goes in and that's like set. We don't have to like budget or do anything for that. It's already there. And then the rest is our operating account, where that's our variable lifestyle expenses. So we're still in the process of working through that. But these are things, Chris, that's the funny thing, is like you go in expecting like Chris is going to give you the playbook and all these things. He more like pulls it out of you. Like we did that on our own, but he kind of helped pull it out of us.
Can I brag on myself?
Yeah.
Another thing we did on our own, he did not tell us to do this, neither did Wade, but I self-reflected, like when we started going through Rocket Money and looking at stuff, I was like, wow, I think I actually have a shopping like problem.
Yeah.
And this is like childhood trauma stuff. I realized like growing up, my mom would show her love a lot of ways by buying us things. My mom was an addict, and like when she was healthy air quotes, like not drinking, for example, she would manically spend. So that was one of her unhealthy things. So she'd miss us while we were at school or whatever, or maybe she'd feel guilty about like she got really drunk the other night, or she said something really mean or this or that. So I'd come home from school the next day and she'd be like, guess what? And I'm like, what? She's like, I was thinking we could go to the pet store and get you guys some puppies. And I'm like, oh my God. So we'd like get puppies, or this is like, 20 years ago when like true religions were cool or whatever. She's like, let's go to Nordstrom, and we'd go, and she'd be like, don't just get one color, get all the colors. I'm like, okay. So she'd literally buy me like $4,000 of like the trendiest, coolest clothes.
Meanwhile, I'd be like, can I get lunch money? It's $2. No, here's your at-home lunch, which I'm grateful for from a health perspective.
Yes, but like, so I was conditioned, like, and I love my mom. I'm not trying to make her sound horrendous, but like that was, I guess, a tactic or tool that she used. And so I don't know, that somehow like transferred to me. And I realized that, and I broke down. Chris has seen me cry, where I was like, oh my gosh, like I realized like this is a pattern I want to break. But like I tend to do that, not to her level. I'm not buying people $4,000 shopping sprees, but like I don't know, like I don't want to say overly generous, but like for no reason. I love buying people gifts. I love making people feel special. I love just thinking of you stuff. But like it was kind of getting excessive where I'm like, okay, I'd look at our Amazon. Amazon makes it so easy, right? Like I'd find a book that I love and I'm like, this book was so good. And then I have like a ton of my friends' addresses like saved in Amazon. I'm like, they all need this. And then I'd look back and be like, oh shit, I just spent like 750 bucks for no reason, just thinking of you, love you, mailing these books to all my friends. Or Wade brought up the the blanket example. Like one night I had Arbonne.
Grand.
No, it was more than that.
Oh,
But anyway, like I found a blanket that I loved and I had Arbonne insomnia, Arbonne insomnia. We're gonna have to edit that
I
out.
had pregnancy
Pregnancy
insomnia.
insomnia one night, and I literally just logged on and was like, "Oh my God, everyone needs this." And I think I sent it to like 55 people. So like I realized like that type of
55
that
blankets.
easy access of just sending things like just out of like grateful for you, love you, like that's super nice. And I do want to be that type of person, but also we're not in a
Not
season.
at a detriment. Like there's a threshold, right? Like it's at a detriment to our family. So
So
yeah, your
long story
acknowledgement.
longer, I'm acknowledging that
Yeah.
I realized I had an Amazon problem. So I told Wade, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a 3-month Amazon fast, January, February, March, no Amazon. And we're almost at the end of March, and it's actually been really easy. We've figured out a system where when we do need something like dishwasher pods or something, I'm like, hey babe, can you get this? And he just does it.
Mhm.
I still have the app on my phone, but I have not been tempted to use it.
It's
just
actually been an amazing system because I don't really shop on Amazon, but like Sandy has a better grip on when we need dish pods. And so she'll either be like, I added to the cart, or like, can you get this? And then it's on me, and then I have to execute too to make sure I'm not like delaying on that. But it's been a great system. And then we don't have any frivolous Amazon spending anymore.
Well,
And it's
that's the
probably
thing
a
too.
reason we're in the
There's
green.
yeah, this is honestly the reason we're in the green every
Yeah.
month because I was spending a few $1,000s per month on Amazon, which was like pushing us over the edge.
Yes.
But that's the thing too. I'm not gonna come to you and be like, "Hey babe, can you get me like," and then just like have
Right.
a list of
50
like
blankets.
no,
Yeah.
but like these shoes or this pregnancy outfit or this or that
Mhm.
or something I might wear once and then end up donating or like just you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it's like and one big thing coming actually that brings up is like it's not about like always reducing spending. It's
no.
being mindful and intentional about it. And then what Chris has taught us is like it's matching desires to dollars. So we've gone through a bunch of exercises with him where we're like, what are our greatest desires? And ours was like health, our family, like stuff like that. And then you realize, and then we went through what are needs and wants, and we're like, oh my gosh, our only needs are food, clean water, and like to an extent probably shelter. Like could you live homeless? Yes, but like shelter, food, and water. Beyond that, everything's a want. Now having a car is almost a need, like in society today and like where we live, etc. But like you realize everything else wants, and then like the type of car is definitely a want, right? And so we started to be like, okay, well, we are going to spend on organic and healthy groceries, we are going to spend on gym memberships, we are going to spend on maybe
Childcare.
experiences, on childcare for our mental health and our marriage. We are going to spend on certain things, but it started to evaluate like, oh, do I need this? Like, is this where I want to be spending? And so where I want to call you out and kind of to put a bow on the episode, but like the progress we've made isn't necessarily our bank accounts are way bigger. We know we're on our way to that. We're still in the middle of the process.
Yeah.
But the progress we've made is mainly energetic and qualitative, where like Sandy, for example, still has her abundant big vision, like oftentimes like leads our family's vision for like, let's build a home here. And like, and then I'm like, okay, we're going to need this much down payment. And like, we have good strengths, but where I'm starting to, I adopt that too by just being around her. But like, she's now so intentional with our finances and grounded in them and has the passwords and understands them. And like you heard her checks every day. And so she's now
I'm
able,
taking
like
responsibility.
more financially killer SWAT team dangerous when she's like, I have big vision and I also am aware of uh, all the stuff now. And now I can start to build. And where I feel like my biggest progress has been, I would like control our finance, not control Sandy really. I would kind of just let us spend, which is like where I was being CFO, where I was failing. My mindset has gotten a lot better, like less stress, better energetically around our money, and we are much more aligned, but also releasing control of things. And inviting and bringing Sandy into it and like trusting her. And I've always trusted her, but like we're together and not be like, oh, I can do that the best. Let me do it. Like I'm just gonna do it. Like I still am breaking through that, but where I feel like there's just this release of control around it, and like that we're 50-50, more so we're both 100-100. Let's both have big vision and dreams 100. Let's both be intentional. And yeah, I'm better at putting together spreadsheets and stuff. I'm still going to do those things, but we're going to review them together. We're going to go through it together.
But the biggest thing, this hasn't felt like restrictive or like,
No.
the word budget is so like low vibe for
Yeah.
me. I like to think of it more as like, I don't know, a spending plan.
Operating account, spending plan,
Yeah.
lifestyle plan, whatever.
But like Wade is like, babe, I don't care what you spend money on. I just want to make sure we're spending less than that's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like empowering to hear of like, oh, he doesn't care what I'm spending money on.
And the
Okay,
desires, the
so
dollars.
I can go get a massage, or I
Yeah.
can go do this, or I can go do that. And he's not going to be like, you went and did this. He's never has the energy of like micromanaging what I'm spending money on.
Other than the branches.
You guys, if you don't follow us on Instagram, you need to go watch the reel that I recently did on the prank that I played.
AI note taker, remind me to put the link to that reel in the recording notes, show notes.
Literally, I mean, it got what, 350 comments in like 3 hours?
Yeah, it was amazing.
People were upset. It was the funniest prank I've ever played on you. But anyway, that's a sidebar. So yeah, anyway, you guys, it's been amazing. This was something we've been grappling with, like sharing this, because I'm like, babe, what are people gonna think? Because we are like the top 1% of our network marketing company. We are successful. We've given a lot of advice on how to invest in real estate and this and that and all these things over the years. And the truth is, like, we do have that knowledge. We have a lot of great strengths in this and that, but the truth is, like, and I will take responsibility for this. I think the majority of the credit card debt that started creeping up was a Sandy thing. And Wade's not going to like let me own that, but because he's like, I shouldn't have let it get to that point or whatever. But anyway, we've already crushed. I'm not going to share amounts, but we had a good amount of credit card debt, and we've already crushed a good amount. And I bet in 6 months we'll be done with it.
And then we start building towards future goals. Like one of ours, like, where do we want to live? We want to build like a custom or semi-custom, like that is a goal, and start to like build towards that. Start to build the kids' investment fund, start to build a crypto, things we want to invest in, certain stuff like that. But like before that, one is our foundation, our energy around it relationally. Then it's the tangible start to crush after the emergency fund, certain things, crush the credit card debt after we give and stuff. And then it's invest. And so like I'm even like, okay, I got to put a halt on investing. Like there's certain steps that we've learned in the
Gotta do
process
things in the right order.
And to wrap it up, I think the biggest thing I've realized, first, if you're feeling financially stressed, which probably 90% of America is right now, life is expensive. Like you're not alone. And like Chris said, there is hope. And it really, whether you have it's hiring a financial coach or not, it's coming together, especially if you're a partnership, and in alignment and being very intentional with it. And there are things, and a coach can help a lot of those ways. But also what I want to empower is like the kind of everything happens for a reason, right? And I think like Sandy and I are successful in different areas of our life, but we were almost given divinely like this issue or this problem or this mountain to climb
to help a lot of people.
First to help us, right, in our long-term relationship, in our long-term financial picture. But like we were given this credit card debt, this unintentionality for years around finances, us being separate financially, not accounts, but just mindset wise and action we take. We were given all that in order to go through this, and we're not through it yet. We're still in the thick of it. But we were given that in order to get stronger on the other side, right? I keep hearing this resounding message like, don't waste a good crisis. Don't waste your problems by trying to rush through them and just get through them and have a quick fix. Like, go through them, immerse in them, learn, grow from it, because the growth on the other side, the strengths you gain, the power you get on the other side, not only for yourself, but then to help other people do it, is incredible. So it's almost this reframe mindset of like, we're here for a reason. And I'm actually grateful for this credit card debt, because what we're going to gain and learn from it is worth so much more than that. In the grand scheme of things, little balance we're going to have to pay off. Like in 10 years from now, we'll like probably be really laugh about it in a good way. Be like, remember that? Remember we were stressed about it and we're in the thick of it. So it's like, don't waste that. Like use it as an opportunity. Like who you're going to become and the growth on the other side is going to be incredible. And that's going to set you up for life. We're 35. We got a long life ahead. for the next 50, 60, 70 years, we're going to have these lessons we've learned. And I honestly feel this almost pull calling, like, I'm going to be able to help other people do that. That's another story for another day. That's down the road in the future. But
You've heard us say this many times, but your mess can become your message, right? Your pain can become your purpose. And that's just, this has been a painful thing that we've been working through privately. And I mean, we have shared a little bit on social media that we're working with a financial coach, but like this was like we kind of really just like let you guys in on what we're working through. So it's been an incredible process. Chris has been such an amazing resource. We'll have his info in the show notes. Thank you guys for tuning in.
yeah,
I'm not sure when we'll have another
I
episode.
appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, Baby Crew's due in the next few weeks. We'll see if it is. Probably be Wade solo episodes. But in hearing this, share this with your partner, share this with your spouse or someone you know would benefit, like that might be able to relate and is struggling financially or wants to feel hope on the better side, because that was our goal of coming on and recording and being vulnerable and sharing our story. And if you do want to ask us about Chris, we're happy to give testimonials. It is an investment to work with him, by the way, but the ROI is there. You can't even quantify it, because what it does for your marriage, what it'll do for your financial future, how it'll help you get through
I'm
and
like
get your goals
excited
probably
every month we get an invoice and we have to pay him. I'm like, okay, let's pay this. Like this feels good.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
And wish you a beautiful day. Ta-ta.